Welcome back to Upside Down Data. We need to talk about Bitcoin. All right, so as you're probably very well aware, Bitcoin has been going crazy the last few days, and we're now trading up at $98,000, which is pretty remarkable. If you asked people back in 2023 if they thought Bitcoin was going to be trading at 98K, they would have said that you are crazy. A lot of people thought we were going way lower. Here we are. So now we have to start talking about what comes next. Now that we are in this potentially more parabolic phase of the market cycle, how high can it take us? What will be the cycle top? We're back in that discussion, something we haven't had to think about since all the way back here in January, March, February, etc. of 2021. It's a very exciting time in Bitcoin. Let's get into it. I want to talk about a lot of our models that we have, what they're seeing, and when we might know that the top is in. So the first thing I want to talk about is our risk model that we have here at the channel, the upside downside potential indicator. High values mean high risk, low values mean low risk. And this model cares about moves that play out over months to multiple months, so longer term in its time horizon. And you see it does a very, very good job of identifying these cycle peaks and also the bear market bottoms. It is an incredible model for navigating the Bitcoin market. It is the reason why we were so bullish through here, back at the bottom, and then why we got a little bit concerned up here and thought that a local top might be forming, why we started getting bullish again over here, and off to the races we're going now. So really what I'm looking at here is, when do we get back up to the top of the scale? In the past, that has been the sign that you were at a top, or you were at very near to the top. When you get all the way up, the scale goes up to 5. When you get up to 4 to 5, that is the point where you might want to get really concerned on Bitcoin. Or another way of thinking of it, that's maximum opportunity potentially to be taking your money out of Bitcoin, rotating into altcoins, and then riding them up after. That has presented some nice opportunities in past cycles. Suspect it will here again. Now we currently are at 1.59 on risk, so we're not up there yet, but we're moving up pretty aggressively. So this is something I'm going to be watching very closely in the coming weeks. How does risk react to what Bitcoin's doing? When do we get all the way up there? And if and when that happens, I'll start to get a lot more concerned, but we're not there yet. So another way of thinking about this is that Bitcoin has more room to run, even with how parabolic it's going. Even though it is nearing $100,000, there is still more room to work with from the model's perspective. I think that is a good sign, something I'm going to be watching closely as we go forward. Okay, so another model I want to talk about that can also give us signal on when the top is near is our momentum bias indicator, or MBI. So this cares about momentum, and really when it's momentum biased to the upside, so basically any attempts for price to go down just quickly gets bought up and the positive momentum wins, versus bias to the downside where the downside momentum wins. Now, there are different things you can get out of this model. I've talked about this extensively, looking at its behavior, how it's acting. You can tell where in the market cycle you are. What I want to focus on in this video, though, is this kind of behavior that we're seeing here, where what you really see with Bitcoin is once momentum gets too extended to the upside, too extreme, that tends to mark either the top or very near to the top. So it's marked the top here, the mid-cycle top back here in 2013, the cycle top over here, cycle top back here in 2017, and then really this first local top in the big run up before we had the kind of rounded top, sort of the momentum top. This is really the extreme momentum here, and then it started to die out, and then we went, of course, into the bear market. And are we on the way to something similar now? So in the past, once you get up to about 1, I should mention that this model, the output is a Z-score. So 0 is kind of the average momentum in Bitcoin, which of course has been positive over time. And these are standard deviation units above and below that mean. So if we get to 1, that's kind of the way you're interpreting this, or 1 or higher, that's when you have to start getting a little bit more concerned. And it doesn't mean that price can't keep going up to some degree, but you're probably getting near to that top if we get up there. So again, not there yet, but we're starting to get there. We're at kind of these more local toppy types of levels that we've been in the past. And so the question is, do we have another kind of local top here, like we did back here maybe, for example, and then chop around, or do we just go shooting off all the way to the cycle top? But we'll see that manifest here we'll also see that manifest in risk. If we stop around here, maybe it's just a local top. If we keep going, maybe it's more likely to be the cycle top. So those are a couple things that I'm looking at across these two different models. Now, something that can tell us in the short term if this rally is running out of steam is our trend confidence indicator, or TCI. So that's what I'm showing you here. And the way that you want to look at this model is, how is it moving in relation to price? If it's moving up aggressively, price will often follow. If it starts moving down aggressively, you tend to get a correction, so on and so forth. So if they're moving together, if you see the TCI moving up and price moving up at the same time, that's a good sign, suggesting you have more room to run. Most likely, it's a healthy uptrend. So if we zoom into what's been happening recently, see this general uptrend that was happening on the TCI, and then price went up. And now what we have is a potential divergence starting to form. So this is the thing I'd like to see the TCI move up and continue higher. What would concern me is if this starts trending down, the orange line here, the TCI, while price, the white line, continues to trend up. That would be a bearish divergence, and it might not mean that the top has to happen immediately, but it would suggest that this rally is running out of steam. And that can create that situation where you might have something like a local top, like over here. Now, you could argue a local top here would actually be a good thing. Maybe that lets Bitcoin cool off a bit and actually go further on this cycle. That is totally possible. But if you just want us to go crazy now, you don't want to see that. If you want to see us go to a cycle top, you don't want to see that weakness show up. So that's where I think Bitcoin is going to have to do something to make the TCI start moving back up to get more confident that that local top is not forming. It's still too early to tell. This easily could reverse up along with price. Everything's fine. I'm just going to be watching it closely, because if we start seeing it very clearly break away, TCI moving down while price is still going up, that would be something more concerning, suggesting that Bitcoin might be running out of gas. Now, finally, one of the easiest things we can look at to identify the cycle top is our market cycle model for Bitcoin. It's one I've talked about a little bit in the past. It is a fantastic, almost a cheat code for Bitcoin cycles when you look at it. So basically, when you're above this blue line, this is the critical level. That's bullish, means you're in a bull market. When you go below it, that's bearish, it means you're in a bear market. And this model very, very well and very, very quickly identifies these transitions out of bull markets into bear markets, out of bear markets into bull markets, so on and so forth. And it identified this current cycle very early. This is another reason why I was so vocally bullish on Bitcoin back here as we got into 2023. We flipped bullish on this model. And then, as I mentioned, we were at very low risk. A number of our different indicators were all pointing in the same direction. All the models were saying, this is the time to be bullish on Bitcoin. This is the blindly buy Bitcoin and don't worry about it phase of the cycle, all the way through here. And then we moved into that a little bit more ambiguous phase. And you'll see that now the model is giving less and less wiggle room to Bitcoin. It's moving this critical level up with time. It's currently sitting at about 52K. And what you might be looking for with this model is, when is that clear moment, like it's done in the past, where it'll decide, all right, that's it. I'm going to move up aggressively. And then when price flips below me, now I'm bearish, and you're probably in a bear market. That's going to be that critical moment. We're not there yet. We're not seeing the market cycle model go vertical like this yet, or really aggressively start to move up. But whenever that were to happen, or even if it doesn't go up aggressively, just whenever price will flip below it, that's when I would be much more inclined to say, all right, the bear market might really be over now. We have not seen that yet. So that's where I think this all kind of dovetails together. We can look across all these different models to see, where is risk, and is it in the point where we would think it's probably a cycle top, all the way at the top of the scale. We can look at momentum. It's getting way too overextended. We can look at the short-term trend to say, all right, if we are at, for example, really high risk, when is that trend about to break? That might mean that the top is very close. And then, of course, when we get that bearish flip on the MCM, we'll know more definitively. Now, the final thing I wanted to wrap up with was to talk a little bit about some on-chain data that can also tell us about how close the cycle top is. And I suspect this will more than likely just confirm everything that we're already going to be seeing with our models. So this is the total realized price of Bitcoin. It's basically the average cost basis of Bitcoin across all Bitcoin, basically. What is the average price at which people bought their Bitcoin overall? And what you tend to see with this metric is it move up aggressively going into tops. And the reason for that is that people who bought earlier at way lower prices are deciding to take profits. And so they are now going away. Their cost base is no longer factoring into the average. And it's being replaced by people who bought higher. Now they have this higher average. That's why the average moves up. You're losing lower prices from the average and you're gaining higher prices. And so that's a sign that long-term holders are selling when you see this move up aggressively. And it's happened every single market cycle. When you go to some kind of notable top, you'll see this acceleration on the realized price move up aggressively and then kind of flatten out going into the bear market. Now, what we've seen more recently here, a slight uptick. We did see an uptick going into this local top here back in March, which suggested that some people have been holding for longer, either just from the bear market here or previous cycles were selling. And it's slowly been moving up, but we haven't seen the really aggressive uptake like we've seen here or like we saw, for example, here. And really, that would be the beginning of time to get really concerned. When you see that aggressive uptick start, that might suggest that you're building into that top. You're building into the all-time high. Now, it's not immediate. This can happen for a while, but it will tell you once long-term holders have decided that it's good enough, they're just going to take profits. And then the more aggressive this is, the more of that profit taking is likely happening. So we haven't seen it super aggressively yet. And so that's where I think all these different models that we're talking about, going back to it, still point to us being in a bull market, still point to more room to work with, still point to more momentum upside that's possible. And we can monitor the short-term health very well also. So that's where I think with Bitcoin, it will not surprise me at all if we trade above 100K. Now, it might not be a vertical line to get there. Could be we get rejected from it. We might not even make it the first time around. We might have to come down, consolidate, correct, so on and so forth. But it does seem like Bitcoin has room to go. And with the narratives that are surrounding it right now, you know, with Trump winning the election and the massive new bullish sentiment relating to that in crypto and in Bitcoin, at least until the inauguration, I think that could easily just keep on carrying us higher. And it might be some fake outs, it might be some things that get people really worried, but I do think we have more room to work with if Bitcoin wants to. It really seems like we're in, once again, the early phases of one of these kind of points. Or maybe you could say that the parabolic phase kind of started back here. We then had just a long break in it, and now we're going to start it back up. But either way, 100K seems like a very attainable target from that perspective. And we haven't seen those classic signs of a top yet. But I'm going to remain nimble. I'm not going to pick some arbitrary price target and say we can't be at the top if we're not there yet. No way. I'm going to watch the data and react to what they're telling me. If the data are all pointing to the top being in, then I'll believe that the top is in. If they're all pointing to it not being in, or at least that Bitcoin has more room to run, like I believe that they are suggesting right now, I'm going to remain optimistic. I'm going to remain bullish. And that's why I think Bitcoin has more room to run if it wants it. So not financial advice. You should make your own opinions of these data and how to navigate the markets. But that's what I'm seeing from our data and from the on-chain data as well. So if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us over at X. A lot of updates for our models and more over there. And you can go to our website, Polarity Digital, to see live data from our models and more.